morning. I just wanted to, this is what we do now for elections, is we do media briefings on a schedule, so you guys all can get your questions answered and hopefully benefit from hearing other people's questions as well. We're going to do this in person today and I think Thursday, and then after that it'll be online only. So far we have returned 1,456 ballots as of Friday for this election. As you know, this is a small election for us, less than 10% of the voters in Shasta County casting ballots, but with some very important issues for the communities that are voting tomorrow in both Shasta and the Gateway Unified School District Area 2. We have, because of all the media coverage of election issues over the last several weeks, we've been getting lots of calls from voters who live outside of those areas, wondering if they're going to have ballots sent to them, why they didn't have a ballot sent to them. It's because they're not included in the election. So if y'all could include in your coverage that this is a very small, limited election, and that other voters, most of the voters in the county are not getting ballots and won't be voting tomorrow, that would be super helpful. They can also go check, voters can check their status to see where they live. In the Gateway School District in particular, we've had lots of folks from the trustee area 1 and 3 calling us, asking us if they get to vote, and if they don't live in 2, they are not voting in this election. So voters can look up their voter status and their registration on our website, and that might help. We'll also have maps at precincts tomorrow, so if folks go into precincts with questions about whether they're included in the election or not, there'll be a map on the wall. They can check very easily to see if they're included in that or not. We're going to start tabulation at some point. I'm sorry, don't know exactly when. That might be on the observer schedule, it might not. Happy to answer questions.
Do you see where the League of Women Voters had a letter to the editor in our publication over the weekend? They're going to be observing what's been.
I did not see that letter, I'm sorry.
So have you had a lot of requests for people that want to come and observe?
Yes, we've had a lot of folks calling us and asking questions, and anyone who wants to appear to observe may. They don't need permission. They don't need to say, "Mother, may I?" They do need to sign in if they're observing in a precinct, and then also here at our office, we have a sign-in upstairs for folks. But anybody can observe. They don't need advanced knowledge or reservations or anything like that.
And you said you anticipated representatives from the Secretary of State.
I believe
to be here. Are they going to be here?
I have not had a confirmation today, so I don't know. My understanding is that they were planning for last week.
And in what capacity, if they do show up?
They're observers like any other voter that's here, observing the election. They're not here. They're not here to take over or run the election. They are here as observers.
Does this election meet the threshold for Hamm County to start?
It does not. We're well over that 5,000.
How many estimated total people are eligible to vote?
9,500 and 9,467, the latest total that I have as of a couple of weeks ago.
And back to the Hamm, there's been a lot of attention. You'll be using these HART machines to tabulate ballots. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I know this election doesn't meet it, but for hand counting, what are some of the changes that might be going along with hand counting now for other elections?
So in order to hand count under the law that the governor signed on October 4th, the election has to be either less than 1,000 voters on a regularly scheduled election date or less than 5,000 for a special.
How much longer of a process will that take now compared to having electronic counting?
So we're not doing it. So I'm not sure how you want me to answer that.
Okay.
We're not doing it for this election. I don't expect that we're doing it for March either. So that's like a suppositional question. So I'm trying to figure out how you want me to address it. If we had a special election,
yeah, if we had an election that would make it
So there's a handout upstairs I can grab for you that explains a lot about how the hand count process works. Just as an example, one of the things that we have to do is count all of the precinct ballots on election night, which we do now. Electronic tabulation makes that possible in a fairly expedient way. It would take, for March's election, for example, days for us to count just the election day votes. We also are not allowed under the hand count rules to process vote by mail ballots. And by process, that means open the envelopes, unfold them, get them ready to be counted. And so that also greatly elongates the process and delays the process.
And per election law, you will be doing a 1% audit hand count. Is that correct? When
Sure.
will that start?
It typically starts on Thursday of this week, but because we have a holiday, it may be that we're going to start that next week. I'm not sure, Dave, but I can get back to you.
So that would be 1% of total number of people in both elections, right?
It's 1% of the precincts involved, but as it may or may not be so obvious, there are very few precincts involved in this election. I believe there's a total 7 precincts in this election. So we will pick one of those at random and count it. But of course, there's 2 different ballot types. So we'll probably have to pick the entire other precinct in Shasta. I'm assuming the random selection would be in Shasta Lake because there's more of those to pick from. I could be wrong. But essentially what will happen is we will pick one at random of the Shasta Lake, and then the Shasta contest, I believe, is all in one precinct. So we'll have to count that entire ballot.
And because such a small number of people are voting, can you give us an estimate when you think all the votes will be tabulated?
So we have to wait to certify final election results now until voters who have forgotten to sign their envelopes may cure those errors. So we always, prior to the election, set what's called a cure date. And in this election, it's November 20th. And so our target is to certify on the 22nd. We will be done counting the majority of ballots long before that.
If people didn't get their ballot in the mail or didn't register, how can they still vote on election day?
They can go. So there is conditional voter registration, which is also commonly called same-day registration in California. So voters can come either here to the office, 1643 Market Street in downtown Reading, or they can go to a polling place and they can fill out what's called a conditional voter registration form, actually an envelope, and then they can cast their ballot that way.
And how many polling places in total are there?
There are 5 locations with 6 precincts. So one place has 2 precincts in it. Are there questions online?
Yeah, Kathy, I had a couple questions for you. I know that we've talked about how you've obviously been developing both the hand counting and the new heart system at the same time. And, with the way things rolled out, the bill getting signed about a month ago now, was that enough time? Were you able to get everything set up with all the machines and stuff without, running into too many problems or having to rush stuff too much?
Well, that's all we've done all year is rush, which is very problematic from our perspective for elections administration, but that's the last thing we want to do. But we are ready and we will begin that process. And precinct officers bring their ballots back to us tomorrow night.
And I have another question, just is there anything that voters should be aware of that they might have to do differently because of the new heart system? And then is there anything different on your side from the elections office that you guys are going to be doing differently?
So voters shouldn't see too much difference, except for those folks who are accustomed to coming into the office here and scanning their ballot. We no longer have scanners. That was part of the Dominion equipment, and the board was very clear they did not want scanners available for voters either in person or in the office for early voting or in precincts. So there are no scanners at polling places. So when folks go in to vote, they will, if they bring their ballot with them, they'll surrender that ballot to the poll worker. The poll worker will issue them a new precinct ballot. They will vote that in their booth, and then they will drop it into a box. And then those ballots will be brought back here for central tabulation. This is the same way that we counted ballots in 2016 and prior. We didn't get those scanners until late in 17. So we're kind of.
Do you feel like this? Yeah. Do you feel like this new system? Obviously, you haven't had an election with it yet, but your experience working with it and getting it set up. Do you feel like this is a easier, more difficult system than what you had with Dominion?
I don't know that I can compare it as far as easier is concerned. Certainly, it's designed very differently. The Dominion system was kind of an all-in-one unit, and so it was huge and heavy and sometimes difficult to maneuver. The HART system has components, and so each individual piece is much more easily handled and movable by our poll workers, which is a great thing. And so what the device that's going to be in precincts is very simply a ballot marking device. It's not connected to anything. There is no internet connection. There is no Wi-Fi. There is no router. And it simply marks a ballot and then prints a ballot for any voter who asks for that. It doesn't have to be someone with a disability. We don't scan, no one is screened or asked any questions. Any voter who wants to try that system out can use it. It has a touchscreen interface. They make their selections on screen, and then it prints out a ballot. And one of the reasons we really liked the HART system when we were choosing a system earlier this year is that the ballot it produces for anyone who uses that system looks exactly like all the other ballots that are cast by other voters. So there's no way to differentiate a voter who used that system versus somebody who mailed their ballot in.
And just lastly, I don't know, I mean, from what you've heard from people talking about coming to the election or being observers and stuff, are you expecting anything, to happen tonight out of the ordinary, or tomorrow night, I guess?
We are not, but of course we can't predict the future. So we have coordinated with law enforcement and continued the practice that we started last year of getting a permit from the city to close the alley behind the office. We want our poll workers to feel safe and protected, as well as our voters to feel safe and protected and able to cast their ballot free from influence. And we are hoping for a very quiet night.
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
Along those lines, have you heard anything from the Secretary of State's office about whether or not there will be any kind of security accompanying their observers?
I don't know. Like I said, I have not heard from them today, so I'm not sure what their plans are.
Okay, and then
And they don't have to clear anything with me anyway. They can just show up.
right. And then as far as counting that goes on after Election Day, that will continue to be observable by those who sign in at your office?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just double checking. So people can still drop their ballots at ballot boxes like the one at City Hall. Are there any other locations besides the elections office and the City Hall that are open for dropping ballots?
There is a drop box, up in Shasta Lake,
Okay.
right outside the community center, which is across from the grocery store on Shasta Dam Boulevard.
Perfect. Thank you.
And all that information is on our website, Annalise. But not every single box is open, so thank you for asking.
Is that the only other Dropbox?
I have to double check, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. And just kind of a different topic, but if people live in a rural area or need some kind of special accessibility, wheelchairs, things like that, what is the elections office doing to kind of help them with voting tomorrow?
So if somebody calls us tomorrow and, for example, it's a shut-in and got their ballot delivered to them but has no way to return it, we will send someone to go pick it up. If somebody goes to a polling place and can't get out of their car to go into the polling place, if they don't have a cell phone, we're kind of in a hard pickle there, but they can do what's called curbside voting. And there's information about that in the voter guide that we mail to every voter that's eligible to vote for this election. So folks can either call us and make an appointment, and we'll have a poll worker go out and help them in their car at the curb, So there are multiple options. There's also remote accessible vote by mail. So folks can use that system if they have a printer and a computer at home. That allows folks with disabilities to use their own accessibility devices. They essentially print out a ballot that has just their results, the selections that they made, and then they have to mail that in to us. And so in that program, it's a web-based program. It doesn't keep the results. It doesn't tabulate the results. It just allows them to print a ballot at home essentially and mail it back in to us.
One last question from me. Staffing wise, do you have the amount of staff that you need to do this election and
We do.
elections going forward?
Yep, we're good. We have the staff that we need on hand now.
Another question. Can you talk briefly about electioneering, or in other words, carrying some kind of campaign materials or signs or things like that close to a polling place,
Sure.
and how citizens can report that if they're seeing it happen?
Sure. So we always encourage voters to call our office if they have a problem, but also they can go into the polling place. If you're near a polling place and you see it within 100 feet, they're not allowed to display or audibly talk about election issues that are actually on the ballot. So if somebody has a candidate flag in the back of their truck that is not related to this current election, that's fine, that's permitted. But they may not have candidate flags that have candidate names on them that are on the ballot, right? Or other yard signs, that kind of stuff that you cannot display, t-shirts, hats, etc. You can't wear those into a polling place. The idea behind those laws is to allow other voters to cast their vote in an environment that's free from influence. So no one who comes into our office can wear those shirts or hats or sweatshirts, whatever, with that kind of likeness. Many times when we talk to voters who are in line to vote, just ask them to turn their t-shirt inside out, put on a jacket, take the hat off. While they're in the polling place, they're free to express their political opinions outside of a polling place, but in a place where people are voting, you are not permitted to proselytize your political opinions about issues only on that particular ballot.
Thank you. That's helpful. And then can you talk about impeding the elections process, either by interfering with elections officials? And I'm particularly interested in who makes the call on what impeding or interfering would be. And then, if somebody is voting and feels that they're being harassed by somebody, what options do they have as well?
Wait, can you say that second part again? I'm sorry.
So the first part relates to harassment or some kind of interference with election officials, and the second part with voters. So if somebody shows up to vote and feels that somebody's arguing with them or in other way disrupting their voting process.
So voters would need to talk to the inspector in the precinct first. If that's the person they have a problem with, or that's not, doesn't get them what they want, it doesn't get them any satisfaction, they're always welcome to call the office, and we will try and untangle whatever it is that's going on in a precinct. As far as election interference is concerned, essentially we have procedure in place to warn folks who are here in the office that if they are interfering with our ability to get our work done, which is the conduct of the election, they will get warned a certain number of times, and if they continue to refuse to behave, then we will have law enforcement come and give us a hand. We're not going to have that happen, though. Annalise, everyone's going to be nice as pie.
I look forward to it.
Anybody else? Any questions? Good. Okay. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you
Thanks so
much.
much.
Here.
Thanks, Annalise. Bye, guys.